Love is cruel in several ways, and one of such instances is that most times, those who don't deserve true love get it. Despite sustaining heartbreak from his ex-girlfriend, Brendan still embarks on a perilous journey into the underworld to discover the mystery surrounding her death. He pushes aside his fears and navigates the treacherous terrains of the criminal world, driven by the haunting memory of his lost love. But Brendan finds out more than he bargained for along the way. The movie begins with Brendan slumped against a wall as if his feet have been knocked out from under him as he stares at the corpse of a girl on the ground near a dark tunnel. The corpse lies in a small stream of flowing water, and her face is not visible because her blonde hair covers it. 2 days earlier, Brendan finds a note in his locker to go to a public phone booth, where he receives a call from his girlfriend, Emily. She hasn't been seen for a few months and sounds distraught on the call. Brendan knows she is nearby because she mentions seeing him. During the call, she rambles about poor Frisco, Pin Brick, and Tug, none of which makes sense to Brendan. When he tries to make her explain, a car zooms past Brendan at that moment, and someone flicks a cigarette out of the window as Emily screams, ending the call. The cigarette has a blue arrow on it. Brendan consults with his smart friend, Brain, who holds a solved Rubik's Cube appropriately. Brendan inquires who Emily has been having lunch with. Brain says that Emily had been hanging out with the football player, Brad, and his girlfriend, Laura, a cheerleader. He continues that Emily tried to join their gang for a long time, but it seems it didn't work out, and the last person he saw her with was Kara, Brendan's former girlfriend, and drug-dealing partner. Brain has locker numbers memorized, and he tells Brendan the one that belongs to Emily. Brendan breaks into Emily's locker and finds a ripped piece of a red-colored picture in one of Kara. He visits Kara at a theater and asks her about the whereabouts of Emily, but she declines, not knowing anything about her. Brendan leaves and walks to her dressing room. He checks her dressing table and finds the other colored picture of the woman hidden beside the mirror. The photo is an invitation to a Halloween party in January. Brendan calls the phone number on the photo, and Laura answers. He gets an invite to the party by dropping Emily's name, who had an invitation. Brendan shows up at the party. Laura's place is the size of a mansion, confirming her upper crust status. Brad is there, drunk, complaining about how the coach isn't putting him in the game. Brendan walks out of the party, and Laura follows him. They walk to a separate room and converse alone while drinking alcohol. Brendan asks about Emily's whereabouts, and her response is similar to Kara's, telling him she isn't close to Emily to the extent of knowing her whereabouts. But Brendan argues that she does, which was why Emily's name served as a pass for him to her exclusive party. Laura tells him to go to a cafe called Coffee and Pie. At that moment, Laura leaves him to attend to someone outside, telling him to wait for her. But Brendan spies on her as she meets up with the guy, who turns out to be the Tug that Emily mentioned on the phone with him. Tug looks angry while talking with Laura. The next day, Brendan visits the cafe, and there, he encounters Dode, a stoner, with several fellow dopers with him. Brendan pressures him about Emily's whereabouts but refuses to reveal anything about it, and Brendan starts beating him up. The young guys with Dode appear to want to stop Brendan's interrogation, but he wittily stands up to them and makes them back off with his words. Dode says that Emily is his girlfriend now. Brendan tells him he wants to hear the truth from Emily herself and that she should meet him where he eats lunch. Dode runs off, and Brendan follows him without his knowledge. Unhappily, Brendan sees Dode meet up with Emily, hug her, and give her a slip of paper. Emily does show up where Brendan eats lunch. He sits on a wall at school during lunch break and sees Emily standing far away from there. Brendan runs to meet her. Despite her calling him earlier for help, Emily says he should forget about her, which is the only help he could render for her. She has made her choice about who she wants to associate with. Emily tries to assert her separateness from Brendan by telling him to stop getting angry because where she wants to be is different from where he wants to be. She tells Brendan that she loves him, but now the only way to help her is to let her go. While they hug goodbye, Brendan takes a notebook from her. While checking the notebook, he sees the paper Dode gave her and sees a symbol on it. It looks like the letter A but with a curved top. Brendan takes it to Brain to solve the puzzle about the symbol. Brain doesn't know what it means but says it could be a symbol for a meeting place and that it's from people in the higher crust, not Dode. Later at night, Brendan keeps staring at the symbol until he dozes off. At that point, the scene cuts to reveal Emily standing at the tunnel entrance, but an invisible attacker suddenly attacks her, and she drops dead. Some minutes later, Brendan wakes up, realizing the symbol represents the tunnel's entrance. By the time he gets there, he finds Emily's dead body. Then, Brendan hears footsteps in the tunnel's darkness and runs after the sound. He is knocked down, and the attacker isn't seen as they flee the scene. At the death of Emily, Brendan becomes desperate to find out what happened. He goes to Brain but doesn't tell him about Emily's death. He solicits his help in solving the mystery surrounding Emily, and Brain agrees to work for him. Brendan decides to act alone, not involving the police in the matter. Brendan has a flashback of the time he has tried to rescue Emily before, and in the flashback, they are arguing. He had turned his drug partner, Jur, in because he felt that Jur and Emily were developing a relationship that would harm her. Emily accuses Brendan of not loving her. Almost in tears, Brendan tells her she is the only thing he loves, and that's why he wants to keep her safe. In the present, Brendan returns to the tunnel and hides Emily's corpse. After that, he goes to Brain and wants his help to figure out what Emily was referring to when he talked to her on the phone 2 days earlier. Brain says Pin can refer to the Kingpin, the local head of drug traffic for young people, including rich clients like Brad. He also says that Frisco could be a sophomore boy from the previous year, but he didn't know what Tug and Brick were. In an attempt to talk to Pin, Brendan picks a fight with Brad in the school parking lot, where Brad is still whining about how he hasn't been named a starter on the school team. After a bloody fight, Brendan knocks Brad out. As he leaves the scene, Laura, who was present during the fight, follows him. She offers to help him, but Brendan has seen how she has played Brad, who he considers a sap, and he tells her he can't trust her. The Pin's muscle, Tug, shows up, but instead of taking him to see the Pin, Tug beats up Brendan badly. Next, Brendan finds himself in the office of Assistant Vice Principal Truman. In their conversation, Truman sounds more like a police lieutenant who has made deals with Brendan. They work together to get Jur, and Truman wanted him to help catch more people. But Brendan refuses, saying he is not Truman's boy nor on anybody's side but his own. So, he isn't there to rat on a list of people Truman wants to run by him. In the end, he and Truman make a deal to give Brendan some time so that he can deliver some wrongdoers. On leaving Truman's office, Brendan calls Brain from a public phone, and Brain informs Brendan that Dode is missing and that he is involved with Kara. When walking through the parking lot, Brendan sees Tug's car and is ready to break into it. Tug approaches quickly, with his muscles bulging out of anger. He again pounds Brendan, but the latter keeps getting up and says he wants to talk to the Pin. Tug grudgingly starts to admire Brendan. He offers to take him and put him in the car trunk so Brendan won't know Pin's location. Brendan can pop the trunk and sees that they are driving to a suburban house, and he notices the address. Pin wears a cape that makes him look like a vampire and uses a cane because he has trouble walking. He is very cool and steady in his speech and unblinking, which results in a sort of intimidating presence. Pin tells him he knows about his attempt to search for him. Brendan says he knows where Pin lives and could divulge the information to Truman. Tug starts beating Brendan again, but Laura is there, and she stops Tug. When Brendan regains consciousness, they go into Pin's kitchen, where his mother offers Brendan cereal and milk, and Pin has a cookie in front of him, which he munches on as they talk about the criminal business. Pin's mom discreetly leaves so that business can be discussed. Brendan wants Tug out before they start discussing, and Pin agrees to Tug dismay. But Pin warns Brendan wittily that Tug is only a fist away. To gain credibility, Brendan admits to seeing Truman and giving him up for personal reasons. However, he can now inform Pin of the authorities' plans and feed disinformation to Truman. Pin says he will check out Brendan's tail and either hire him or turn Tug loose on him, depending on the results, by the end of the day the next day. Laura gives Brendan a ride back to school in her vintage Ford Thunderbird. While dropping him off, Laura asks Brendan if she has gained his trust, and he tells her she didn't until she tells him her stance. She tells Brendan that Emily wanted to be with Pin, Kara, and the gang but didn't fit in. Laura says that Emily stole a brick of heroin because of her addiction while leaving the gang. Brendan didn't buy the story. Laura acts like she understands Brendan and his feelings for Emily as she tells him that she knows he's trying to help Emily, an act no one can do for her. But Brendan lets her know that he considers her dangerous. The next day, Pin hires Brendan, and Dode calls Brendan, saying he saw Brendan moving Emily's body, and he threatens to expose Brendan for his involvement in Emily's death. Later, Brain tells Brendan that the boy Frisco was found in a coma after taking heroin poisoned with laundry detergent. Brendan sneaks into the Pin's house and finds stacks of money hidden behind a desk drawer. He goes into a dark room with no electricity and uses a mirror to reflect sunlight so he can see, and he finds a brick of heroin. There, he encounters Tug, who appears distraught. With his condition, Brendan gains his trust by saying he thinks Pin is holding information back, which he needs to protect himself. Tug says there were 10 bricks, and 8 were sold. The 9th went missing, but it was later anonymously returned. It was the one that Frisco sampled and which poisoned him. The 10th one is the one Brendan discovered. When Brendan says he heard about Emily being involved with the missing brick, Tug pretends he doesn't know Emily. But Pin shows up and lets it become known that Emily and Tug were romantically involved. Pin says someone has information about the missing Emily and that they will meet him. Brendan knows it's Dode. Before the meeting, Brendan, who is sick from all the blood he has swallowed from his beatings, encounters Dode. He tells Brendan that he believes Brendan killed Emily when he discovered she would have Dode's baby. Of course, this is shattering news to Brendan. Dode now wants to expose Brendan and get money from Pin for the information. The meeting with Dode, Pin, Tug, and Brendan occurs at the tunnel. Tug's rage is evident as he pulls apart a piece of rope as Dode starts talking about Emily and her pregnancy. Before Dode can try to implicate Brendan, Tug, jealous at the thought of Dode impregnating his girlfriend, shoots and kills Dode. Brendan was so sick he passed out and woke up in Tug's home. Pin admitted that Tug was getting out of control, and his killing Dode was the last straw. A war between Tug and Pin is looming. Tug admits to killing Emily in anger over the pregnancy. Laura enters the room where Brendan rests, and the two become intimate. But then, Brendan notices that Laura is smoking a cigarette with a blue arrow. He finds out that Tug doesn't smoke cigarettes. Brendan starts to carry out a plan. He asks to borrow Tug's car to throw off anybody following him and promises to mediate peace between Tug and Pin. Laura says she doesn't want Brendan to attend this meeting because she thinks it will be dangerous. Brendan tells Brain to call the cops to have them show up at Pin's at the end of the meeting and that there will be drugs in Tug's car. At the meeting, Pin thinks Tug poisoned the 9th brick and wants proof that the last one is okay. Brendan offers to try it, but the last brick can't be found. A battle breaks out between Tug's men and Pin's, each accusing the other group of treachery. Tug and Pin start fighting, and Brendan does not answer Pin's pleas for help. Brendan escapes, but before that, he has placed Emily's body in Tug's car trunk as the police arrive. 6 people died at Pin's house, including Pin and Tug. Brendan sees Laura on the school's playing field and tells her about her involvement in the crimes committed. She was in the car tossing her cigarette when Emily screamed after catching a glimpse of the person who set her up. Laura stole the 9th brick and poisoned it so that Pin's reputation would be undermined, which caused Frisco's coma. She set up Emily as the one who took it. Once Laura learned that Emily was pregnant, she urged her to meet with Tug and be honest about the baby. Laura knew about Tug's temper and figured he would kill Emily, thus eliminating any chance that she would incriminate her in the brick theft. Laura even took the last brick to start a war between Pin and Tug. That is why she warned Brendan not to show up at the meeting. Brendan has already written a note for Truman telling him of Laura's crimes, and Truman checks Laura's locker, and the last brick is discovered. Laura has a parting shot of her own to fire off. She tells Brendan that Emily was ready to abort the baby but didn't. It was 3 months old, so it was Brendan's child. At this revelation, Brendan's dejection increased. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to help the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.